Hey guys, today is finally the day that I start my forever world. While I am surviving in my new world, I will play 8 interesting Reddit stories that I found. The goal for this channel is for you to see the progression of my world while listening to some interesting stories in the background. The gameplay will be completely uncut and never played outside of recording a video. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Without further ado, I'm going to read the first story. Am I the bad guy for deleting my son's Minecraft world? I have 2 children. A 9-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. My son had a Minecraft world where he built quite an impressive castle on an island, which he was very proud to show to me. Since school was cancelled, he has had issues with waking up on time. He is supposed to wake up at 7 each morning, but for the past month, he has been sleeping in until about 9 or 10. I always set an alarm for him, but he sleeps right through it. I don't wake him up because waking himself up is a skill that he needs to learn. I told him about 2 weeks ago that there are going to be consequences for him if he continues to sleep in every morning. At first, he understood and was waking up on time every morning, but for the past week or so, he has fallen back into old habits. I told him yesterday that this is his final warning. Today, he slept in until 11, so I followed through with my warning and went on the computer and deleted his favorite Minecraft world. I also took away computer privileges for the next month. When I told him, he started screaming and crying. He told me that he spent a whole year working on that world, and he's very distraught that he's never going to see it again. He has been crying and sobbing throughout the day, and has refused to eat any of his meals. Alright, on to the second story. Would I be the bad guy if I submit an anonymous complaint against my coworker? My coworker has been ruffling a lot of feathers recently, and today I've decided I've had enough. My coworker, let's call her Eileen, is extremely difficult to work with. Eileen was hired a year after me, and pretends that she is my supervisor. She does very passive-aggressive things to me on the daily, double-checking my work, speaking over me whenever I have a question, doesn't necessarily follow policies that are in place. My office has a manager, assistant manager, 3 supervisors, and 3 teams of 7 people that works closely with her husband's department for some background. On my shift, we've recently had very low morale, to the point where we had to have a meeting about how to raise it. In that meeting, it was said to sit at different positions around the room. We don't have assigned desks, and to be willing to adapt to what's happening on the job floor, including having patience with the trainees for our position that have been hired, because they're literally learning how to do their jobs. For the past 3 months since Eileen has been released from training, she has been sitting in my unofficial seat. I've had to sit on the other side of the room and be isolated. I try to show up to work early to sit at the desk that is mine, but she refuses to move. Yesterday, Eileen had asked if I had heard anything about a trainee. Let's call him Michael. I said no, but I think he's a good guy and trying his best. Eileen starts giggling, then tells me that the employees from her husband's department have a nickname for Michael. She started laughing harder and said, "I can't say it, I have to show you," and showed everyone that was working on my shift a photo of Stephen Hawking, and started laughing harder. Michael in no way resembles or sounds like Stephen Hawking. Immediately, everyone who saw and heard told her we didn't think that was funny, and the conversation stopped. But it rubbed me the wrong way. I felt very uncomfortable that she was speaking about a trainee without them present in a very negative way. So today, I wrote an anonymous letter to our shift supervisor to make her aware of what was going on, and thinking about putting it in her mailbox. I am unsure how serious this will be taken, and don't want to be the reason someone gets in trouble or written up. I absolutely do not want Eileen to lose her job. So, would I be the bad guy if I follow through with my plan to put my anonymous complaint in my supervisor's box? On to the third story. Am I the bad guy for kicking them out with no money? I organized a last-minute trip to Patagonia and invited a 24-year-old friend to join me. I had booked a cabin and wasn't keen on staying alone, so I had asked a few mates until Agustin was down to tag along. We didn't make an itinerary, as he refused to meet up to chat beforehand. Throughout our time there, several incidents occurred that created significant tension. The most prominent was a planned 5-hour mountain trek. We got a very late start that afternoon because Agustin slept in all morning, despite our agreement to wake up early. He was in a cranky mood and refused to get up. In an effort to keep the peace and salvage the day, I prepared us breakfast. When we finally arrived at the trailhead, Agustin got cold feet after a stranger warned us not to start so late. To address his concern, I suggested we ask the Park Information Center and other trekkers for their opinion. Most agreed we still had enough time, so we proceeded. I had let him know I had no issue with going back down if he felt uncomfortable. He then claimed, "I'm not worried about me trekking, I'm worried about you trekking," which felt like a deflection. We ended up staying overnight on the mountain. Initially, Agustin refused to camp, suggesting instead that I sleep alone and hike back down by myself the next day so he could descend immediately. Knowing it was a bad idea to descend in the dark, I reluctantly agreed to go with him so I would trek alone. He rushed me to hurry up with my photos and leave. However, while I was taking pictures, he dove into the lake, smoked a blunt with a stranger, and then abruptly decided he was willing to stay at the campsite after all. His behavior at the campsite felt really disrespectful. He wanted to urinate right next to our sleeping area because it was cold outside. When I asked him to go farther away to avoid getting our sleeping bags wet, he became upset and ripped my sleeping bag off me in the freezing cold. He then smoked cigarettes right beside me, multiple times during the night without asking if the smoke bothered me. The next morning, when it was time to hike down, Agustin was content to let me go alone so he could have some tea first. Felt I was rushing him. I had already told him not to worry about paying for our shared accommodation, as he claimed to be broke. When he finally arrived at the cabin later, his only question was, "How was it?" I told him I made it down safely, but was really upset he was so willing to leave me to hike alone. He ignored me and offered no apology. Upset, he didn't apologize. I asked him to leave and find his own place to stay. He immediately erupted, screaming insults at me and refusing to let me speak. I don't want anyone to be homeless or on the streets, but I did have him leave our accommodation as I felt uncomfortable. All right, on to another story. This is an interesting one. Am I the bad guy for leaving my friend on a random town? Just to give you some background. Last Thursday, my friend, let's call her A, asked for my help, looking for a place to do her internships. I was supposed to go with A, and one of her other friends who also needed an internship. My college is pretty far, so I spend around 2 hours commuting every day. It really eats into my time and energy, leaving me completely drained by the time I get home. She wanted my help, so I asked her how far the town was. She mentioned it was about a 40-minute bus ride. She's learning to do hair, and around my place, you can find a hair salon on nearly every block. So, I asked her why she felt the need to go so far for her studies. She told me she wanted to be wherever that other girl was. We spent the afternoon going around asking different salons. When we finished, we saw out the next bus to get home wasn't coming for another hour. I was completely frustrated and worn out, but our options were limited. We ended up having to take another bus to a different town, which was about a 30-minute ride, and then hop on a train for another 20 minutes. I got home really late, and I was so drained. Afterward, A told me she wanted to do it again the next day, and if I'd come along. I just told her that I was likely going to be too tired, but she wouldn't let it go, so I said we'd see what happened. The next day, she asked me again. I told her I was worn out and my head hurt, but she just wouldn't let it go. Finally, I said yes since it meant a lot to her, and her friend was tagging along. But I had one condition. We'd go, ask what we needed, and then head straight back. She agreed. Once we were done with the salons, I told her we needed to head to the bus stop. She ignored me and stayed with her friend, so I figured they would follow, and I started to walk. When I got to the stop, I noticed they weren't there, and then I saw the bus pulling up. I checked and realized the next one would take 40 minutes. I called her and told her. She came running with her friend, and when they got there, I got on the bus. So I got in, and just as I do, she tells me she can't find her transport card. 10 seconds later, the driver closes the doors. I had the chance to get off, but I didn't. I went home. Obviously, if she'd been by herself, I absolutely would have stayed. No second thoughts. But she was with her friend, and her friend's family lives in that town, so it's not like she was stranded or anything. It's not the first time I've dealt with this kind of issue. Just last week, we agreed to catch the same bus to go see our friend, B. I figured she'd gotten on because her stop comes before mine, but she wasn't there. When I asked what I should do, she said, "Really mad? Do whatever you want." So I still got out the bus later. She was just a 10-minute walk away and couldn't be bothered to come to me. It feels like I'm always changing my plans, giving up my time and energy for her. I feel as if she doesn't respect my boundaries. Am I the bad guy for telling my best friend's boyfriend that he shouldn't date her anymore simply because I don't trust him? I'm struggling with a situation involving my best friend Sarah and her boyfriend Mike. Sarah and Mike have been dating for about 6 months. I've known Sarah for years and I care about her a lot. Over time, I noticed some behaviors from Mike that made me uncomfortable. For example, he can be controlling in small ways. He questions her plans a lot and sometimes makes dismissive comments about her friends. I've also noticed him being dishonest about minor things, which made me question his reliability. I tried to keep these concerns to myself at first, because I didn't want to interfere in her relationship. I also tried talking to Sarah about a few things, but she seemed to dismiss my concerns. Recently, I spoke directly to Mike and told him that I don't trust him, and that, in my opinion, he shouldn't be dating Sarah. I was trying to express my concerns, but I realize now that it may have been overstepping boundaries. Sarah found out what I said and was hurt and upset. She told me that it's her decision who she dates, and that I shouldn't try to control her relationships. I understand her point, but I also feel like I was trying to protect someone I care about. I feel torn because I don't want to damage my friendship or cause conflict, but I also wanted to express my perspective before it escalates further. Final story. Am I the bad guy for backing out of my best friend's bachelor party? I'm a 27-year-old male, and I was supposed to be my best friend, Bruce's best man. He is currently 25, marrying sometime this year. A short while ago, Bruce, Kevin, his brother, this guy, Henry, I barely know him, and I started considering the idea of an overseas bachelor trip. The price? About $2,500 each. On our first conversation, we all somewhat shrugged and said, sure, that works, but decided not to schedule anything yet. We decided to wait a few days, then schedule a call. After 3 days, the group had the follow-up conversation. I missed it. My basement in my house flooded that evening, so I was tied up working to protect my things and keep the water out. I sent Bruce a text, told him what was going on, and let him know to keep me informed on the outcome of their choice. While I'm still dealing with my flooded pumping water out of my basement, Bruce just goes ahead and makes the trip reservation the trip. He covers all expenses, does not consult me, doesn't obtain my consent, absolutely nothing. None of us even had passports yet. Not a single person bothered to say the tickets were non-refundable. I didn't approve a single thing. He called my family for my information to place in the reservation. Bruce shares a message in the chat group, letting everyone know we got to pay by March break. He already knew I was strapped for cash well before I spelled out all the facts. After that, things continued to spiral in my life. I'm self-employed as a house painter, and suddenly jobs started getting pushed back. My vehicle overheated, it turns out. I have to have a replacement radiator. I am still dealing with flood damage. The pace of work decreased. Money decreased. After everything, I messaged Bruce and informed him I couldn't manage the cost of the trip anymore and wanted to have a conversation. He demanded I call him right away, even though I was at work. He went to share it in the group chat, said he was airing dirty laundry, and essentially informed everyone I was backing out due to my financial. That's when the group piled on and started roasting me for backing out. He said to me this trip was the single most important thing to him. End of story. Regardless of what I was handling. His last message, if I truly cared for him, I'd phone him at once, never mind my car, the flooding, or the reality that I'm struggling. I understand I should have said something sooner, but I also did not consent to a non-refundable trip. I had a role in the first discussion, not the second. Plus, I genuinely can't afford it without completely ruining my situation. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is my first one ever made, so let me know what you think. And please consider subscribing for more videos like this. See ya.